Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite rock and metal albums of 2023 so far. Since we're now in the month of June, we're just about halfway through 2023, so I thought it was time to look back at some of the best releases of the year thus far. And that said, coming in at number 10 here, I'm going to go with The Dying of Everything by Obituary, released this past January. Fantastic stuff here by the band. The follow-up to Self-Titled from 2017, and, it's a raging heavy album by the band. Obituary, Florida death metal legends, turning back the clock here at times with some classic Obituary moments on this record. Again, really heavy stuff. Some standout tracks include Barely Alive, probably my favorite song from the record, great opener. The Wrong Time, Without a Conscience, War is super heavy. The Dying of Everything as well. My Will to Live is great. By the Dawn, Torn Apart, and Be Warned from Relapse Records. Really great stuff here by Obituary. Again, the follow-up to Self-Titled from 2017. Taking them a while to get back into the studio. It had been years, but finally, new album here from Obituary. Great stuff to kick off the year. Coming in at number 10 here on the list. Have to go with The Dying of Everything. Next at number 9, I'm going to go with an album that was just released this past Friday, and I've been listening to nonstop ever since. That's Tomorrow Never Comes by Rancid. Punk rock legends here back in the studio for the first album, following up Troublemaker from 2017. So a pretty long gap in between studio albums here, but it's great to have Rancid back in the studio with new material, even though this album is probably not as strong as some of their classic stuff. Rancid are a different band now than they were back in their prime. It's still a very strong record, and it's great that they're still delivering on such a high level with their new releases. So some standouts for me here include the title track, Eddie the Butcher, A Devil in Disguise, When the Smoke Clears. All the songs on here are really solid and fun listens, though. Just under 30 minutes. Every song on here is short and to the point, and I really dig that. Great stuff by punk rock legends Rancid with Tomorrow Never Comes, my number 9 here on the list. Coming in at number 8 here, I'm going to go with Rokflote by Jethro Tull, progressive rock legends back with their 23rd studio album and the follow-up to the Zealot Gene from 2022, making it the shortest gap in between studio albums in the Tull catalog, and it's just great to still have Jethro Tull releasing new music, new material being in the studio, and this record is, in my opinion, stronger than its predecessor, that being the Zealot Gene. So for me, I was very pleased with this album, all produced by Ian Anderson. It's pretty much what I expected from Jethro Tull at this stage in their careers. Proggy, flute-driven music here with some elements of folk rock as well, so that was really cool. And even though Ian Anderson's voice is not nearly what it used to be, this is still a really great studio effort here by the band, in my opinion, with some standouts being Hammer on Hammer, The Navigators, Wolf Unchained, Guardian's Watch, and many more as well. It's a really strong album from top to bottom. Now, would this record be in the same conversation as, say, Aqualung or Thick as a Brick? Absolutely not, right? This is not anywhere near, top shelf Jethro Tull, because their catalog is just that strong. But it's great to have new material from the prog rock innovators Jethro Tull in 2023, and I was very pleased with Rokflote coming in at number 8 here on the list. Following things up here with my number 7, I'm going to go with Congregation of Annihilation by Metal Church. Now, this is the first Metal Church record to be released since the death of longtime vocalist Mike Howe, and I was very intrigued to hear how the band were going to respond, recruiting new vocalist Mark Lopes to replace Howe. And if this album proves anything, in my opinion, it's that Metal Church are here to stay. There may be a new singer in Mark Lopes, who does a fantastic job, by the way, and if you watch any interviews with him, seems like a really cool dude. Great fit for the band, but it's still the same Metal Church that we all know and love, and it's a super heavy record in my opinion, with some standout tracks that include Pick a God and Pray, hands down my favorite song from this album, right? Of course, you have the title track too, Children of the Lie, All That We Destroy, and Making Monsters. And I always felt that Metal Church were one of the more underrated metal bands to really never make it big, so I had to include this album on the list for sure. I guess you can call it a comeback record, a bit of a reinvention here in terms of a new vocalist, but in every other aspect, it's still same old Metal Church, and for that, I really do love this album. My number 6 here on the list is going to be the other one by BABYMETAL, released this past March. It's the 4th studio album here by BABYMETAL, released through BABYMETAL Records. And, this album is a really interesting concept, exploring parallel worlds in the metalverse, as they're calling it, which I think is really cool. And I do think that Sue Metal and Moa Metal did a fantastic job here as a duo, with a heavy, futuristic sounding album with some very strong instrumentation that I gravitate towards, really exemplified on some great standout tracks that include Metal Kingdom, Mirror Mirror, Monochrome, and of course the Legend to close things out. And for non-Japanese speaking BABYMETAL fans like myself, there's something on here for everybody, in my opinion. And for me, I absolutely love the musicianship on display here by the band. I think this was a record they absolutely had to make at this stage in their careers, and it's hands down, in my opinion, their most mature record to date as well. So I really do enjoy this album quite a bit and think that it's one of their best releases since they started. So for their fourth studio album here, I think, like I said, probably the most mature album in terms of, musicianship and from a sonic aspect. So I really do dig that quite a bit. It's my number 6 here on the list. Have to go with the other one by BABYMETAL. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this album, I did a whole album review on it with my top 5 favorite tracks and so on and so forth. So I'll leave that video linked in the comments section below. Breaking into the top 5 here with my number 5, I'm going to go with Foregone by In Flames. Now, in my opinion, this was the best In Flames album to be released in a very long time, possibly going back maybe a decade and a half or so, and I wouldn't quite call it a reinvention since, classic In Flames melodies and harmonic solos are definitely still present here on this record, which is great, but the band had definitely found the fountain of youth in some respects here on their 14th studio record, and I absolutely love it. For me personally, I had checked out of In Flames a while back, but when this album dropped, I heard this was all anybody was talking about was the new In Flames album. You got to check out, this fantastic record here. So I did. I put on Foregone, I listened to it, and I was absolutely blown away. This record definitely brought me back to In Flames, and some of my favorite standout tracks here from this record have to be State of Slow Decay, Meet Your Maker, In the Dark, Bleeding Out, and Pure Light of Mine, just to name a few. Fantastic stuff here. A great bounce-back record by In Flames with Foregone. Just killer stuff, and an album they absolutely had to make. Really a statement record more than anything else with their 14th studio effort. At number 4 here, I'm going to go with Scorched by Overkill. Overkill are thrash metal legends, and at this stage in their career have absolutely nothing left to prove, but that didn't stop them from going into the studio here and recording what is, in my opinion, their best album in years, and so far probably the best thrash metal release of 2023. Bobby Ellsworth's vocals here just sound incredible, and the musicianship, of course, is super heavy in classic thrash fashion, with some awesome standouts here that include Scorched, Going Home, Twist of the Wick, Wicked Place, Won't Be Coming Back, Bag of Bones as well. And then, of course, you have The Surgeon, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the best thrash metal track of 2023 thus far. Love that song to death. Great album here by the band. Fantastic stuff. Really heavy. And, for Overkill, I definitely had to include it in the top 5 here. It was released on the same day as 72 Seasons by Metallica, so it probably got lost in the shuffle a little bit, but I still think it belongs in the top 5 thus far in 2023. Just killer stuff here by the thrash metal legends. Moving into the top 3 now, I'm going to go with Every Loser by Iggy Pop. Now, just like what I was talking about with Overkill, Iggy Pop at this point, a total legend, has nothing left to prove to anybody, but in my opinion, this is the best Iggy record in years. Just a fantastic record here with some really great collaborations and guest appearances on this album that I really enjoy. I think Iggy's vocals sound great, and got some really awesome lyricism on here by Iggy Pop as well. Some standouts include Frenzy, Strung Out Johnny, New Atlantis, Modern Day Ripoff, Morning Show, right, Neo-Punk, right, Comments, The Regency, produced by Andrew Watt. It's great stuff here by Iggy Pop, and I thoroughly enjoy this album, but I think more than anything, the reason why this is in my top 3 is because, Iggy Pop is one of those musicians who is really the last of a dying breed. Lou Reed is dead, unfortunately. David Bowie has passed away, Iggy Pop is one of the last remaining, punk rock legends doing the solo thing and still releasing consistently strong albums. So I think we really need to, enjoy these albums while we still have these musicians still around, and for Iggy Pop, not take them for granted as well. So this album here, in my opinion, is great, and it's just fantastic to have Iggy Pop still in the studio, and for them to release an album like this, I just really enjoy it, and I'm very happy he's still making music. Now, is this record, on the same level as some of his best work, like The Passenger or The Idiot? No, definitely not. But still, for 2023 here, Iggy Pop does a fantastic job in the studio, and I thoroughly enjoy this album just from top to bottom. Well, it's only been out since Friday, and it's already number 2 on the list, so that should tell you how strong this record is. Coming in at number 2, let's go with But Here We Are by the Foo Fighters, the tribute album to Taylor Hawkins, dedicated to Taylor, as well as Dave Grohl's late mother, Virginia. This album is just an emotional roller coaster in terms of lyricism on this record. Just some of the best lyrics I think the band have, churned out in many years. And for me, I had kind of checked out of the Foo Fighters for a little bit. I wasn't a big fan of Medicine at Midnight and really didn't have any interest in the DG stuff. So for me, this record brought me back in a major way. Every song is, an emotional track, super meaningful stuff. And I found Dave Grohl's vocal performance on here to be incredible as well. Just some raw guttural vocals that I really enjoy and I think make this album album just all the more impactful. A great record here by the band that they had to make, in terms of making a statement as well as paying tribute to their longtime drummer Taylor Hawkins. And no doubt in my mind, the band are going to, keep going and, going to have a very bright future, as well as, in this second chapter of their careers. I think they're going to keep killing it. And if this album was, the creative spark that lit the fuse for the second chapter of their careers, then so be it. Of course, the circumstances are very unfortunate. This is still a band grieving, still in mourning, but delivering what I think is their best record in years. So coming in at number 2 here, have to go with But Here We Are by the Foo Fighters. Really, really fantastic stuff. Before I get to my number 1, I do have a handful of honorable mentions here. So a recognition here goes to Sky Void of Stars by Catatonia, Interludium by Powerwolf, War Against All by Immortal, Black Diamonds by LA Guns, and the Phantomime EP by Ghost. All really solid releases that I enjoy quite a bit, but I can only fit 10 on the list here today. And finally, coming in at number 1, I'm going to go with 72 Seasons by Metallica. Now, there's a majority of people out there that will just dump on anything Metallica do at this point, regardless of whether or not they've heard it or not. And of course, that's their opinion. They're entitled to their opinion, and there's still a large crowd that feels like Metallica have not done anything good since Injustice for All. And again, you're entitled to your opinion, but respectfully, I do feel like you're missing out on some really strong work that the band are doing in the 21st century here, including this album, 72 Seasons, which is, in my opinion, their best record since Load from 1996. And just for context, I consider Load to be a top 5 Metallica record, so great work here by Metallica. Again, another one of those albums the band needed to make. I think every song on here is an absolute banger. The only song that I'm really not a fan of anymore, but I was initially, is Lux Eterna. It's just kind of Fuel 2.0, and at this point I've kind of soured on it, but every other song on here is incredible. In my opinion, the best song on this record is If Darkness Had a Sun. Just really infectious, catchy track, in my opinion. And of course, the album closer, Inamorata, is just outstanding, right? Kind of a blend of The Outlaw Torn, Fixer, and a lot of their other album closers that, extend that plus 7-minute mark. So that's fantastic in my opinion. Really heavy stuff here by Metallica. Is it thrash metal? It's thrashy at times, but I wouldn't, describe this album as 100% thrash. The production is very clean, maybe almost too clean at times, but Metallica are my second favorite band of all time, and I thoroughly enjoy this record. But, one thing that really bothered me when I did my video of the best albums of 2022 last year is, somebody had, mentioned that they thought my list was a popularity contest. And, for me, that could not be further from the truth. Good music is good music, regardless of how popular the band is, and you have to believe that, even though Metallica are my second favorite band of all time, and as big as Metallica are, if they were to have released a stinker here, I would not have put it at number 1, probably wouldn't have put it on this list at all, right? But, I really do enjoy this album. I think it's very strong and the best Metallica record in years, like I mentioned, so it's got to be number 1 on my list here today. But there's still plenty of time left in the year. There's still a lot of exciting releases coming soon, so will this keep the number 1 spot? I'm not sure. There's still a lot of great stuff to be released in 2023 that I'm excited for, but for now, my favorite album of 2023 has to be 72 Seasons by Metallica. So that wraps up my list, counting down my top 10 favorite rock and metal albums of 2023 so far, which should be visible right over here. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below. We are getting dangerously close to hitting 1.4 thousand subs, so if you've not subscribed to the channel, please feel free to do so. Turn on the bell for notifications so you never miss a new upload. And let me know down in the comments below. I want to hear from you. What are some of your favorite releases of 2023 thus far? Can be from any genre, really, so let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And until next time, it's the CD Guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.